Muted.
Okay, so good morning everybody. Starting on time today. My name's Andy Donaldson and I'm one of the directors of HitSearch over here. Today we're going to be talking and giving you a bit of a background about mobile marketing, particularly for e-commerce, just give you an overview of the different sort of areas that we would advise you to start to look at when you're starting to put together and get to know a mobile strategy and a mobile e-commerce strategy particularly. Just a bit of housekeeping to start with. Everybody, I've just put everybody on mute. I'm expecting about 10 to 15 attendees today, so obviously I can't if we've got everybody's background noise, then obviously it's going to be a bit distracting. So for now, the way in which we work these webinars is I'll put everybody on mute, and if anybody's got any questions towards the end, excuse me, then I'll unmute the relevant people so that we can all sort of hear questions. Anybody else that doesn't want to come onto the webinar, then feel free to use the chat window, which you can see there to ask any questions. Helen from our marketing team is also on the phone. She'll be collecting some of the questions and we will run through them towards the end. So you can use the chat, you can ask me a question towards the end, and you can also use our social media channels at HitSearch on Twitter particularly, and also LinkedIn to ask some questions via that channel, and Helen will pick those up. Just let you know the webinar is being recorded, so if you do miss any points but you don't have time towards the end of the webinar, then feel free to replay the recording, because we'll email it to everybody later on this afternoon, I believe. So don't worry too much about that. We're looking to be around 30 minutes to 35 minutes, and then questions towards the end, hopefully no more than sort of 10 minutes worth of questions, and then we'll let you get on with your day. Okay, so first things first, let's get the slides going. Okay, so it's part of a webinar series of 3. Which we'll come on to give you a bit more detail on shortly. It's a fashion mobile marketing series, so it's specifically geared at fashion retailers, right from large brands right the way down to the more challenger brands. So hopefully you'll find value in these 3 series of webinars. If you don't, if you haven't signed up for all 3, don't worry. You can jump into this one, or you can. This is more for the people that listen to the recording later on, but you can jump into webinar 1, 2, or 3 independently, but they are all linked as part of a webinar series. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and hopefully you'll learn something over the next half an hour. So aim of the webinar. First things first is just to give you a bit of an insight. In terms of our experience, we specialize in digital marketing and mobile marketing for fashion and retail brands across Europe largely. We have got some clients at the moment live over in the States and Australia as well, but it's mainly the European brands that we work with essentially. So we want to impart some of this knowledge in the easiest way we can. Now bear in mind we've got half an hour to do this, so it's quite difficult for us to identify in a webinar series of 3, what a mobile strategy needs to look like for your specific brand, because of course on the line today on this live webinar we've got everybody from huge multi-country brands that have had a visibility for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and beyond, and we've also got some of the smaller brands that are either just started up and just on a specific UK market. So we can't deliver you a specific strategy for each of those types of businesses, but hopefully we'll give you a bit of a background as to what you need to start to look at to incorporate your mobile traffic essentially. As I mentioned already, some of this is webinar 1, webinar 2 and 3. So just so you know what we're going to be covering. In this one, we're going to give you a bit of a background about the mobile space. Webinar 2 it is essentially some of the trends. So what in e-commerce 2016? So what are the top brands looking at? And we're going to, in the course of this webinar, we're going to give you a bit of an insight into what we think are some good ideas from a mobile strategy. And mobile strategy, some brands think it's a mobile website. It can be, but a mobile strategy is a bit bigger than just the actual website, the mobile website itself. It incorporates different types of mobile strategies, so we're going to give you a guide on some of that. So the next webinar 2 in a couple of weeks' time, that's going to be focused more on the trends, and what I want you to take from that is just some tips of how to start to then build your strategy. So what should you be doing for your specific brand, some of which will be relevant for you individually and some of which won't be, but at least it'll give you a guide as to what some of the top sort of minds in this space are looking to do in 2016 for their fashion and retail brands. And then the final one, which we're really excited about, is a live mobile analysis of misguided.co.uk. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving you almost as if Misguided is clients of ours, what do we tend to do when we sit across the table with them and we start to assess their mobile visibility. So we'll go through the mobile website of misguided.co.uk in as nice as possible ways as we can. We're not going to be sort of slagging them off or anything. We're going to invite them onto the webinar, so hopefully they'll come on and join us and give their view on things. But essentially what we want to do is just sort of say, look, have you thought about using this strategy, or have you thought about changing this position of the call to action? Have you thought about changing content layout? So the idea being is that for the live attendees of the webinar and also the recorded attendees of the webinar, we can just basically give you a dissection of a website. So when you're thinking of building a mobile website, you'll be able to use that sort of feedback essentially and implement it from there. Okay, let's start with this particular webinar one. A bit of an overview, and a great way to start an overview really is going to be to look at some mobile stats and see which ones will make us stand up and take notes. So first of all, eConsultancy put together a survey, and they spun off a number of articles off the back of it, and they asked their audience within the retail category which of the subsections was accessed or searched for most on a mobile device, on a smartphone. And the output of that was that the clothing, apparel and accessories section within fashion and retail was the most accessed, to the tune of 65% via a smartphone. So it's interesting. We know now that mobile devices, and let's just clarify, a mobile device can be a mobile phone, it can be a tablet. So essentially it's anything other than a desktop, I guess, to a certain extent, but primarily a tablet and a mobile. And what people are starting to do now is they're starting to use the mobile for a lot of research. So, and this sort of proves it really. If you're looking for a new outfit for the weekend, or if you're looking for some training apparel, a lot of the time most people do those sorts of searches whilst on a commute or whilst at home. So outside of the normal advertising window, essentially. If you think about television and radio, typically they're targeted throughout the day, maybe to a certain extent, but certainly the more specific searches for apparel particularly on a mobile device will happen mainly on a mobile device. So understanding that, first of all, as a statistic from a body like eConsultancy that has a big sort of retail arm is really quite important, stat to think about essentially. Did you know, according to ComScore, that out of a total smartphone audience, a massive 43.3% said that they use their smartphone whilst in a retail store. So it's really interesting when we're talking about mobile strategy, and I've already alluded to this at the start. Don't just think about building a mobile website, you know, m.misguided.co.uk or m.hitsearchlimited.com, so, or whatever your domain is. Don't just think about that. That is almost a function of your mobile strategy, the website, as will other parts of it. We'll come on to later on a big retail brand that does this in-store experience really quite well. So we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But have a think about how you can use that stat. So 43% is quite a lot of people. Nearly 1 in every 2 people that visits that is in your store is accessing your products on a mobile phone while they're in the 4 walls of your business essentially. So is there some ways that you can optimize that? Yes, there is, and we'll give you some tips on that a little bit later on. Did you know that Shopify, according to Shopify, that mobile accounts for over 50% of all e-commerce traffic? As marketeers and as people that are interested in that in the fashion and retail space from a marketing point of view, you should know, and I'm sure you will know, that the lion's share of your traffic will now come to your website. Even if you just look at your Google Analytics data, will come to your website via a mobile device of some description. And again, as the point makes there, really, it just further highlights the importance of creating and implementing a mobile strategy for your brand. What we're tending to find as well is, going slightly off tangent, but the mobile visitor as part of a site-wide visitor plays quite an important role in assisting conversions. So what do I mean by that? So if we jump back to the previous point we mentioned at the start, really, that the vast majority of people will search for clothing, apparel and accessories via their mobile device rather than a desktop, which is what the point is essentially making there. that really it plays quite an introductory and assisting role. It brings the people to your website, and then almost your desktop to a certain extent then starts to convert, and that tends to be the disparity where people go wrong with a mobile strategy, where they think they just need a mobile site, and then everything from a mobile site point of view will convert via that mobile channel. Whereas if you've got a fashion brand, or your average basket value is higher than maybe 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds, maybe 100 pounds, 200 pounds and above, certainly for fashion specific brands, you're looking at maybe a basket value of 400, 500 pounds, then a lot of the time people will only access the mobile site to look for a dress, pair of trousers, suit, whatever it may be, but they will potentially and more likely convert via a desktop. So understanding that journey, the introductory journey of the mobile channel, and how that assists the site-wide conversions is a really important to make and understand, really. So when you're thinking mobile strategy, don't just think we need a mobile website and the mobile website will convert mobile traffic directly through that channel. It will, but it will also influence on the channels vastly as well. And that's the same on the other side of the coin. So your desktop traffic may well convert on a mobile phone. So it's worth bearing in mind, and we'll come on to this point a little bit further down the line. So let's just take a really quick look at some of the top retailers. So we spend quite a lot of time looking at the market. These aren't clients that we work with at the moment. We've got to be a little bit careful with client confidentiality, that we don't sort of talk too much about our clients, and also we don't want to come across as, look at us, aren't we great? The idea of these webinars is really to educate you guys, really, as to how to set up your own strategies rather than us trying to sell to you. So we don't want to talk about our clients, but certainly we spend a lot of time as part of working with fashion and retail brands looking at the market and looking at what they're doing and what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. And that's why in webinar 3 we're going to look at Misguided, because they've got a really good spread of things that they're doing really, really well, and things that we feel that we could sort of we would do differently or certainly improve on. So we always look to the market. We looked at these 3 retailers here, Schuh, Topshop and Burberry, and a couple of things that we noted, really. First things first, that and this is a point I made earlier, Schuh have implemented Wi-Fi enabled push notifications. So basically anybody that's in their store, so going back to this stat earlier from eConsultancy, about 43.3% of smartphone owners now use their phone in store. So how do we make the most of that? Well, most smartphones now have got a piece of technology installed called NFC, which stands for Near Field Communications, and basically, long story short, it allows a push notification to be received from a sender, so it's a signal that is within the store. It's not somebody that stood by the door that presses a button that sends things manually. It's something that can be set up automatically. But it could be things like if you enter the store or anywhere around the front door, for example, so maybe 10 meters outside or 5 meters outside, you can set these parameters. So anytime they enter the store, you give them and they access the website, or you can add sort of and, if, and not statements. But let's say anytime they enter the store for the second time that day, for example, you can present them with an offer. So maybe that they've been in twice already, you know that they're a bit further on the buying cycle and you feel that they need a bit of a nudge over the line, then why not set up an NFC communication or a push notification to say, by the way, we know you've been in twice, what about 10% off? Or maybe the messaging needs to be thought through a bit more, but certainly you can be clever and quite cute with the way in which you send that message. It can be quite, if your target audience is younger, it can be a bit more sort of colloquial in terms of how you use the language of that message, or if it's an older demographic, it can be a bit more straight to the point and a bit more offer-led. You can also advertise things like, I know a lot of retail stores, particularly in central London, they do things like they have a DJ on, so Topshop do that sometimes, where they'll have a DJ on, and so you can advertise things like that to get people in store rather than rather than sort of that might not work for an older age demographic, but certainly look at the push notifications, the in-store alerts. Essentially, it's fairly inexpensive to set up, and it's all automated. So when someone moves within a field that you set up, and they get a message that you predetermined. So it's definitely something as part of an overall mobile strategy that isn't just focused on a mobile website specifically, that you can start to look at and implement. I've already mentioned Topshop. They're always quite cutting edge in terms of their mobile, their overall digital strategy as a whole is pretty advanced, but particularly the mobile side, they're always trying new things. And another area to look at, of course, from a mobile strategy point of view is a mobile app. And they've got this app that they call On The Go. and essentially it enables customers to search for closest stores, things like it's got a barcode scanner, so they can check stock and they can look at products. And again, going back to the point that we mentioned earlier from e-consultancy, that 43% of people use their phone in store, then again, it's a great way. An extension to that is that people will be using the app in store as well, and so you can push notifications to the app and things like that as well. So certainly the in-store experience, in my experience of working with retailers, tends to be left for the merchandisers or for the buyers of product, and they worry about the placement of product and placement of this. Or actually what's happening now is the offline is very much so merging with the online, and we need to make sure that the digital teams are working very closely with the in-store teams to bridge that gap between traditional website footfall and traditional retail bricks and mortar footfall. And this is a great way of doing it. And then lastly, Burberry, they really do a lot of work on understanding their audience, and their audience is essentially, from a social media point of view, it's on Snapchat. And what they did was, they made history. In October 2015, what they did was on the photo shoots for the new range of for Spring Summer 16, they had somebody there that was essentially live Snapchatting, almost a bit like a behind the scenes, sort of a live stream essentially. So they had someone there taking pictures of the models when they're in all their clothing for SS16, and essentially what it did was it positioned Burberry as a mobile brand essentially. Traditionally they were, I guess, a bit more traditional in their approach to their audience, but they very much so did a lot of audience persona work and work on who they're trying to communicate with, and they identified Snapchat as a channel to go after that audience. And they did that very well, and it got a lot of rave reviews, it got a lot of followers, and it really built their brand. So when we're thinking about mobile strategy, think about a direct response and think about return on investment. So how many sales can we get to the mobile channel, and what the return is for our investment on that. That's definitely the way to think about it. But there are also other ways to tell your audience that, right, you are now a mobile brand. And you think, well, actually, surely people just understand that Burberry is a mobile brand. They really don't. So it really needs to be put out there and thought through as part of a broader mobile strategy that knits very nicely into a broader digital marketing strategy, that then knits very nicely into an overall marketing strategy, all based on your audience, who you're talking to, and why, essentially. So that was the 3 examples of 3 brands that we think are doing things quite differently and quite interesting, quite an interesting approach. So, okay, you can run off and do those 3 tips, that's great, but what we thought would be good at this point in this particular webinar, coming up to the sort of halfway point, is to say, well, okay, if Schuh, Topshop and Burberry are doing these things really quite well and we can go and use them, that's great, but what are the things that we should avoid, essentially? So we thought, well, let's give you sort of 3 of the most common mistakes, because most of our clients we've developed mobile strategies for. So what have been the biggest mistakes that when analyzing our clients' websites and mobile offerings and mobile strategy, what are the mistakes that they make, essentially? So mistake number 1, what companies tend to do is they attend a webinar like this, and mobile has been mentioned, is on the agenda, and they say, right, hit search, we need to go and spend some time with that on that webinar and understand. And at the end of the webinar they go, right, I've got some great ideas, we need to do this. And the first thing they do is they either rush off and design a mobile website and then sit back and watch and say, okay, well, what are we, have we converted any traffic, what how's it working? And they ignore that what we need to do to start with is build a framework that the website sits within. The other error that's the same part of mistake number 1 really is that they'll race off and make some changes to their mobile responsive website or their mobile website, and they don't, interesting enough, really based on, they don't actually look at what that website looks like in a mobile screen, and they don't look not at what it looks like not just in a certain size of mobile screen, but all of the different sizes of the mobile screen: iPhone 5, iPhone 6, Galaxy 5, Galaxy 6, Galaxy 7, what are the most accessed screen? And this harps back to website design and build and user interface analysis many years ago, when sites first started to be designed. As a big thing about, let's look at what it's like in, Chrome, Opera, Internet Explorer, and so that's now become part of a very basic design and development for a desktop website, whereas that seems to have been forgotten for mobile websites. People seem to just say, right, well, we'll move, Misguided, for example, have got their call to action on the right, we'll go and do that. But they, excuse me, they forget to look at what that looks like on a Galaxy S5, on a Galaxy S6, on an iPhone 5, iPhone 6, what it looks like on a HTC Desire, and so on and so forth, and then also on a tablet. Because in our experience, a mobile responsive design, specifically than a mobile design itself, it's a mobile specific website, the responsive design can look very, very different depending on the code you've got on a tablet and on a mobile, or on an Android device and on a Windows device and on an Apple device. So just a great tip, there's a free Chrome browser called User Agent Switcher. So just type that into Google. And essentially what it allows you to do is, if you're using a mobile company to do it, or you want to look at how your site is today, download that. It sits as an extension in Chrome, and then you can change the literally just sort of drag and drop the screen settings, and it'll show you exactly how yours looks as you start to change the settings, as you start to slide the dimensions of your screen across to match pretty much any layout whatsoever, from a really tiny mobile screen to a really big mobile screen and onto a tablet as well. So if you don't take anything else from the webinar, definitely take that tip. Download User Agent Switcher, type into Google, and you'll see it in top. Okay, mistake number 2. I guess really from our experience, again, people attend webinars like this and then they sort of shoot off and almost design a mobile strategy, what they think, and they say, right, we need to understand and put all of our attention and all of our interest into the mobile part of our strategy, because our offline and our desktop and the rest of our digital strategy works fine. And what we tend to find is sometimes that clients will put so much attention into the mobile that they'll forget about the desktop website. And so almost you've got the mobile website that is leading the design and leading the amends and leading the user journey analysis and development, and the desktop website gets left behind. So what we would say is, if you are, let's say for example you've got a mobile responsive website and you want to move that from a mobile responsive website into a specific standalone mobile website, just make sure that any updates and from a design and usability point of view that go into that new design are reflected on the desktop site. Because there's nothing worse than a non-seamless approach for customers when they go on the website, on the desktop website, and then they nip off for lunch and they think, oh, I'll just have a look at that coat again on the Misguided website, or I'll go and have a look at the coat or those pair of shoes on the Schuh website, and they get a very different experience. And a lot of the time, if it's a better experience on desktop than mobile, for example, that they won't convert, because initially they access the website via the mobile, and so they have less less time to sit on a desktop, for example, and now a lot of people don't actually have a desktop. A lot of the time they work on tablets, so you've almost lost that customer. So just make sure that everything is seamless and all fits together as coherently as possible. And then finally, mistake number 3, use data to understand and lead the design of a mobile app, website, and don't go against the data. So much time we present either a design or particularly a mobile strategy that's based on their data, so data taken from Google Analytics, for example, or from a specific mobile platform data. The content management system, for example, is a good source of data. And we come back with suggestions to say, okay, this is what you need to do based on your audience data, not based on our other retail and fashion clients, based on your specific client data. And a lot of the time we get some pushback from that to say, well, actually, I don't think that our audience is that age, for example, and I don't think that that's what happens with the journey on our website, because our customers on the phone yesterday and they said they loved the website. So don't try and take all the personalities out of the room. Try and take small data sets out of the room. As I just mentioned then, I spoke to 3 customers last week out of 4,000 website visits. I spoke to 3 people last week, and they all said the website was great. Well, actually, what about the other 3,997? So what did they think of the website? If they think the website wasn't a great experience, then lean into that data pool rather than the 3 people, 2 of which are friends of yours from last week. So a lot of text on this slide is really just more for the recorded people going to look at this. But essentially, make sure that data is the lead for all website developments and changes, whether it's a mobile or desktop. So hopefully that's just under half an hour, I believe. Thanks for attending. So we'll look at some questions now. So I'm just going to, in fact, what I will do first of all, if you haven't already signed up for the other 2 webinars, then please do so. So we will send a recording and some links to the other 2 webinars if you haven't already found them on our fashion section on our website, which is hitsearchlimited.com/fashion. So definitely go on to that section and have a look and sign up for the webinars. We'll go into a lot more detail in webinar 2 and specifically webinar 3, where across those 2 webinars we'll really start to delve a bit deeper into what a strategy looks like, essentially, and how you guys can implement it for your own fashion and retail brands. The other thing that we can do, we'll be able to take some questions now, and I can just see that Helen's gathering 2 questions that have come through already. But we're also offering a sort of away from this webinar analysis of your mobile website, essentially. So whether it's mobile responsive or whether it's a full mobile website, or you haven't got a mobile website yet, but you want some guide on the design and what works and what doesn't work outside of these 3 webinars, then we're offering a small amount of consultancy, just to sort of say, look, this is based on our knowledge, this is what you need to do, is a bit of a freebie for attending these webinars. So please don't share with the masses. We don't want 400 businesses come to us and say, can you help us out with some free mobile strategy? So we know who's attended this particular webinar. I think there's 11 people on here. So for you 11 people, fine. Please feel free to get in touch, but obviously don't forward to mates and other fashion brands, because yeah, we'll get inundated, which has happened before. So appreciate if you don't if you don't do that. Okay, so let me open up to the floor. I'll bring Helen. I'll unmute Helen. So hang on a sec, Helen. I think you've got. Where are we? Okay, Helen, do you want to send your question via chat if you can? I think there was a couple earlier. For some reason, your audio isn't connecting for whatever reason. Okay, so let's have a look. Question number 1. So in terms of free mobile site analysis, what do we need to provide you with? Okay, good question. So we just need a conversation. So we'll just ask some questions about whether it's a responsive website, whether it's a full site, or whether it's sat on a separate domain like m.misguided.co.uk, and we'll just have a bit of a chat about the technical side of it. And in terms of the second part of the question, so in terms of what we need to provide is just the URL for the website, or if it's mobile responsive, just let us know, and we can use some of the software that we've got to access it and give you some insight as to what's potentially right and also what's wrong with the site. In terms of what kind of advice we'd be giving out, it would just be based on our experience in the fashion and retail space. You know, what things to change that have a positive impact on conversion rate initially, but also what have a positive impact on user experience. So what do people use mobile sites mainly for, and therefore how do they like information presented, essentially is what we'll be doing. Second question was, you mentioned a common mistake when starting to build a mobile strategy. Is that you can focus on it so much that you neglect your wider audience? Yes, I did. How much time should be spent focused on my mobile strategy, and how much should I dedicate to my other channels? So really good question. So bear in mind a point I made in the last sort of 10-15 minutes is don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So I understand if you haven't got a mobile strategy, you need to spend a bit more time doing that, and that's obviously important to do so. But essentially, don't forget that you will be leaving desktop behind. So try if you've got, let's say, what we try and do with clients is work out how many hours you've got to spend on strategy per month. So let's say you've got 50 hours to spend on all of your digital marketing strategy. Just make sure that the mobile part of that is as big a chunk as, for example, your desktop development. So let's say you spend 5 hours a month on designing and developing your desktop, make sure that you at least spend that amount of time on, if you've got a mobile website, keeping up to date, or keeping that website up to date with your desktop, or vice versa. So just give it a fair shot. You'll know yourself how much time you spend on mobile. If it's next to nothing, then you need to spend more time on it, of course. And how much time is a difficult question, because A, I don't know how much time you spend at the moment, but B, it's a bit like how long's a piece of string. And in the consultancy that we can offer, we'd be having a chat about trying to achieve with it, with the website. Is it revenue that you're trying to increase? Is it usability? Is it becoming a mobile-friendly brand that you're not at the moment, maybe? So it needs a bit more digging. It's not as easy to say, but really it needs to be as big a part of the overall strategy as the main website is, essentially. So hopefully that's answered the question. If anybody wants to put their hand up in the chat, let me know, and they can come on to the webinar live and ask some questions. I think, yeah, George, give me a shout on chat whether you want me to unmute you or whether you want to ask via the chat system. It's entirely up to you. Unmute, great. Not shy, George. I like it. I'm going to select. Let me unmute you.
I think I just did it.
Hi, George. Got you.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Okay, just a quick question again concerning the other two webinars that are coming up. I think you mentioned it before, but you will send out an email for the for reservations, and so also with the recording, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think if Helen wants to just jump on and just put the actual times of those webinars, I know they are on the landing page on the website, but Helen, if you can just jump on and put the times in the chat there so George can see. But yeah, essentially it'll be in I think it's about 2 weeks' time, and then the following one, the analysis of misguided, in 2 weeks thereafter. You need to, as I mentioned at the start, you need to sign up for each one, because there are series as far as we're concerned. But if you guys only want to jump into the overview and then the last one, that's fine. You just need to register so that you get that email. But what we will do to the 11 attendees today, we'll email with the recording the 2 remaining links, so that you can jump onto both if you want. But just remember that you need to sign up for both, George, if that's okay. And
okay.
I've just noticed that Helen's coming in and said it's 15th of June at 11 a.m. for the e-commerce mobile marketing trends one.
Okay, as long as there's a link going to be sent out to sign up, that should be fine.
Yeah, there will be. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have another question, George, while we're on?
No, that's about it.
Okay. And did you find it useful today?
Yes, but it was very high level, right? So I'd like to see more in-depth things.
Definitely, and it's been designed that way. So the first series of webinars that we always do is just to give a bit of background and just to sort of say, because the people on the line, we've got everybody from big brands right the way down to smaller brands. So we just want to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field to start with, and then we go in a bit deeper on webinar 2 and 3. So hopefully you'll find those useful.
Of course. Thank you.
No problems. Thanks for attending, George, and appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, so if there's no more questions, I don't think there is. Helen just put the live mobile analysis of misguided at .co.uk is 22nd of June at 11 a.m. So those 2 dates are on there now. But as I mentioned to George there, we are going to follow this up later on this afternoon with the 2 links to the landing pages, so you can sign up for those along with the recording from this webinar. Just to reiterate what I said to George, please bear in mind you have to actually sign up for those 2 to receive the sort of meeting invite following that, like as per this morning. So please do put your name down, and we look forward to seeing you then. Okay, so thank you for attending. Hopefully you found it useful, and I really look forward to speaking to you in webinar 2 and webinar 3. Thanks very much.